When I walked into the Suffolk County Family Court that cold November morning, my ex-son-in-law Marcus laughed and whispered loudly to his lawyer, "Look, she brought her crazy mother for backup." But when the judge called my name to address the court, Marcus froze mid-smirk. Judge Roberts looked up from his papers, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Judge Martinez?" he said, his voice cracking slightly. "Elena Martinez? Is that really you?" The entire courtroom fell silent. Marcus's confident grin vanished. His lawyer, who had been shuffling papers arrogantly just seconds before, went pale and dropped his pen. I saw them exchange panicked glances as I stood up, placed my worn leather briefcase on the table, and replied calmly, "Yes, Your Honor, and I'm here to represent my daughter. I'm glad you're here with me today. If you're watching this, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story reaches, because what I'm about to tell you is about more than just a custody battle. It's about a grandmother who had to become a warrior one more time, a daughter who found her voice again, and a granddaughter who learned that telling the truth is always worth it, no matter how scared you are. Let me take you back to the beginning, so you understand how we got here. My name is Elena Martinez. I'm 58 years old, and for 12 years of my life, I was a federal judge in the District of Massachusetts. People used to respect that title. They used to stand a little straighter when I walked into a room. But that was a lifetime ago, before everything fell apart, before I had to choose between my career and my integrity. It started when my daughter Sophia was just 17 years old. I was presiding over a major corruption case involving a real estate developer named Morrison and his son, who had been accused of fraud and embezzlement. The evidence was overwhelming. Any judge with eyes could see the kid was guilty. But Morrison was powerful, connected, and desperate. One evening, I came home to find an envelope on my doorstep. Inside was a cashier's check for $500,000 and a note that simply said, "The boy walks free, or your career ends." I sat at my kitchen table that night, staring at that check. Sophia was upstairs doing her homework, completely unaware that her mother was holding what could have been her entire college tuition, our mortgage paid off, a comfortable life. My hands were shaking. I won't lie to you and say the decision was easy. $500,000 is life-changing money. But then I heard Sophia laughing on the phone with her friend. That innocent, pure sound. And I thought about what kind of mother I wanted to be. What kind of person did I want my daughter to see when she looked at me? The next morning, I turned that check over to the FBI, along with the note. I convicted Morrison's son. And within a week, my world started crumbling. Suddenly, there were anonymous complaints about my conduct. Newspapers ran stories questioning my judgment. Political pressure came from every direction. I was given a choice: resign quietly or face a very public, very ugly investigation into fabricated ethics violations. They couldn't get me on actual misconduct, so they were going to destroy me with rumors and innuendo. For Sophia's sake, because she was about to start college and I didn't want her dragged through that mud, I resigned. I told everyone I wanted to spend more time with my family. But Sophia knew. She saw the newspapers. She saw me crying in the bathroom when I thought she wasn't looking. And she saw me get back up the next morning, put on my work clothes, and go to my new job as a legal consultant, making a fraction of what I used to earn, working out of a tiny office above a dry cleaner on the south side of Boston. Sophia grew up watching her mother lose everything for doing the right thing. And I hope, it taught her something important about integrity. She became a teacher, specifically an elementary school teacher, because she wanted to help kids who came from difficult backgrounds. She was making barely $30,000 a year, but she loved it. She'd come home with stories about her students, her eyes shining with pride when one of them finally grasped a difficult concept or opened up about their home life. When Sophia met Marcus Sullivan at a charity fundraiser, I wanted to be happy for her. He was handsome, charming, working as a senior financial analyst at a prestigious firm. He had that smooth confidence that can either mean genuine success or carefully hidden insecurity. I couldn't tell which at first. When they got engaged after a year of dating, I smiled and hugged them both, but something in my gut twisted. Call it a mother's intuition or a judge's instinct for reading people, but I saw something behind Marcus's eyes that worried me. "Mom, you don't like him," Sophia said to me one evening while we were addressing wedding invitations. "I didn't say that, honey. You don't have to say it. I can see it on your face." I put down my pen and looked at my daughter. "Sophia, I just want you to be careful. Take your time. There's no rush." "Mom, I'm 28 years old. I know what I'm doing." She sounded defensive, hurt even. Not every man is like Dad. That stung, because she was right to bring up my ex-husband. He'd left when Sophia was 9, said he couldn't handle being married to someone whose career was more important than him. It was the coward's way out, and Sophia had suffered for it. So I kept my mouth shut about Marcus, told myself I was just being overprotective, and walked my daughter down the aisle with a smile on my face and a knot in my stomach. The first year of their marriage seemed fine from the outside. They bought a small house in Brookline. Sophia got pregnant quickly and gave birth to my beautiful granddaughter, Olivia. I remember holding that baby for the first time, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and thinking that maybe I'd been wrong about Marcus. Maybe he really did love my daughter. But slowly, gradually, things started to change. Sophia's phone calls became less frequent. When I'd visit, Marcus always seemed to have a reason why they couldn't stay long, or why Sophia couldn't come over alone. "She's tired," he'd say. "The baby's been keeping her up." Or, "She's not feeling well." Always a reason. Always him speaking for her. Then I started noticing other things. Sophia had always been stylish, loved bright colors and bold jewelry. Suddenly she was wearing beige and gray, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, barely any makeup. She'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way. Her laugh, which used to fill a room, became this small, nervous sound. And her eyes, God, her eyes looked haunted. "Sophia, are you okay?" I asked her one afternoon when Marcus had gone to work and I'd come over to help with Olivia, who was about 3 at the time. "I'm fine, Mom. Just adjusting to motherhood." She didn't look at me when she said it, just kept folding the same washcloth over and over. "Honey, you can talk to me. If something's wrong, if Marcus is, if he's hurting you in any way." Her head snapped up, eyes wide and frightened. "Mom, don't, please. Everything is fine. Marcus is a good husband and father. I'm just tired." But her hands were shaking, and I saw a bruise on her wrist that she quickly covered with her sleeve. I wanted to push, wanted to grab her and shake her and tell her to leave him right then. But I'd seen enough domestic violence cases to know that pushing too hard can make things worse. So I stayed close, visited as often as Marcus would allow, and waited for Sophia to be ready to ask for help. That help came 6 years later, when Olivia was 9 years old. Sophia called me at 2 in the morning, her voice broken and terrified. "Mom, I need you. Can you come get us? Please?" I drove to their house in 15 minutes, breaking every speed limit. Sophia was waiting on the porch with Olivia, both of them in pajamas, a single suitcase between them. Sophia's lip was bleeding, and Olivia was clutching a stuffed rabbit, tears streaming down her face. "He hit her," Sophia said as I helped them into my car. Marcus came home drunk. Olivia was still up because she couldn't sleep. She asked him to read her a story, and he shoved her into the wall, called her a brat. And when I tried to stop him, she didn't need to finish. I saw the forming bruise on her cheek, the way she held her ribs. I drove them to my apartment, set them up in my bedroom while I took the couch, and in the morning, I drove Sophia to file a police report and start divorce proceedings. The next 2 years were a nightmare. Marcus denied everything, claimed Sophia was mentally unstable, and had made up the abuse allegations. He hired an expensive lawyer who painted Sophia as an unfit mother suffering from postpartum depression and anxiety. They dug up the fact that Sophia had sought counseling after Olivia's birth, something I'd encouraged her to do as a healthy way to handle the stress of new motherhood, and twisted it into evidence of mental illness. The divorce was finalized, but the custody arrangement was joint. Marcus got Olivia every other week, and every time my granddaughter came back to Sophia, she seemed more withdrawn, more anxious. She started having nightmares. She'd wake up screaming, calling for her mother. "Olivia, baby, what did Daddy say to you?" Sophia would ask gently, holding our crying granddaughter. He said, Mommy is sick, that Mommy might hurt me." That I should tell people I want to live with Daddy because Mommy can't take care of me. My blood ran cold. Marcus was weaponizing that child's love for her mother, twisting it into fear. And there wasn't much we could do about it without concrete proof. Then, 3 months ago, out of nowhere, Marcus filed for full custody. His petition claimed that Sophia's mental instability had worsened, that she was emotionally abusing Olivia by speaking negatively about him, and that he could provide a more stable home environment. He'd recently gotten engaged to a woman named Amanda Thornton, a socialite from a wealthy family, and his lawyer argued that this new family unit was exactly what Olivia needed. I watched my daughter fall apart. Sophia stopped eating, barely slept. She'd sit for hours just staring at the wall, tears running down her face. The strong, vibrant woman I'd raised was disappearing before my eyes, crushed under the weight of Marcus's systematic psychological torture. "I can't lose her, Mom," Sophia whispered to me one night. "I can't lose Olivia. She's all I have." "You're not going to lose her," I promised, though I had no idea how I was going to keep that promise. I hired a private investigator named Robert Chen, an old colleague from my days on the bench. "I need everything on Marcus Sullivan," I told him. "Every lie, every secret, every mistake. He's destroyed my daughter, and now he's trying to take my granddaughter." Robert worked fast. Within 3 weeks, he came back with a file that made my stomach turn. Marcus had a history of domestic violence with a previous girlfriend who'd been too afraid to press charges. He was using cocaine regularly, spending money from his and Sophia's joint accounts on his drug habit and on lavishing gifts on Amanda. There were photos of him clearly intoxicated at clubs, videos of him arguing violently with valets and waiters. And most damning, Robert had managed to record a phone conversation between Marcus and Sophia where he explicitly threatened her. "If you fight me on this custody thing," Marcus's voice snarled on the recording, "I will destroy you. I'll make sure you never see Olivia again. I'll tell the judge you're crazy, that you're dangerous. Who do you think they'll believe? A respected financial analyst with a stable home and a beautiful fiancé, or a broke teacher with a history of mental health problems?" "But I'm her mother," Sophia had said, her voice small and broken. "You're nothing," Marcus had replied. "You were always nothing." I listened to that recording 3 times, my hands clenched into fists, rage burning through me like fire. How dare he? How dare this man break my daughter, terrorize my granddaughter, and think he could get away with it? The first custody hearing was a week before Thanksgiving. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and old radiators struggling to heat the building against the November cold. Sophia sat beside me at the plaintiff's table, her hands trembling in her lap. Marcus sat across the aisle with his lawyer, James Pritchard, a slick attorney known for playing dirty in family court. Amanda sat behind Marcus, her hand on his shoulder in a show of unified support, her expensive perfume wafting across the room. Judge Roberts, whom I'd known professionally years ago but hadn't seen since my resignation, entered the courtroom. He was older now, his hair completely gray, but he still had that authoritative presence that good judges possess. He reviewed the case file silently for a moment, then looked up. "This is a petition for full custody filed by Mr. Marcus Sullivan. Mrs. Martinez, you're representing yourself?" Sophia started to stand, but her legs gave out slightly, and she gripped the table for support. "Yes, Your Honor," she managed to say. Pritchard stood up, buttoning his suit jacket with theatrical flair. "Your Honor, my client is seeking full custody of his daughter, Olivia Sullivan, due to serious concerns about the child's welfare in her mother's care. We have documentation of Mrs. Martinez's mental health history, including postpartum depression, anxiety disorder, and ongoing counseling. We have testimony from Mrs. Martinez's former coworkers indicating erratic behavior. We have evidence that she has been alienating the child from her father by making false allegations of abuse." He continued for 10 minutes, painting Sophia as an unstable, vindictive woman who was using their daughter as a pawn. I watched my daughter shrink into herself with every word, her confidence crumbling. "We'd like to call Olivia Sullivan to the stand," Pritchard announced. My heart sank. They were going to make that child testify. Olivia walked in, escorted by a court officer. She looked so small in that big courtroom, her blonde hair in 2 neat braids, wearing a dress that Amanda had clearly picked out for her. She wouldn't look at Sophia, wouldn't look at me. She kept her eyes fixed on her hands. "Olivia, sweetie, I just want to ask you a few questions," Pritchard said in a fake gentle voice that made my skin crawl. "You're not in trouble. We just want to know how you feel, okay?" Olivia nodded, barely visible. "Do you love your daddy?" "Yes." "And do you feel safe with your daddy and Amanda?" "Yes." "Now, what about Mommy? How do you feel when you're with Mommy?" Olivia's small voice wavered. "Mommy cries a lot. She gets scared and it makes me scared." "Has Mommy ever said bad things about Daddy?" A pause. Then, so quietly we could barely hear, "Yes." "What kind of things?" "That he hurt her. That he's a bad person." Tears were streaming down Olivia's face now. "But Daddy says Mommy is sick and making up stories." "And who do you want to live with, Olivia?" The longest pause of my life. Olivia's shoulders shook with silent sobs. "I want to live with Daddy," she finally whispered. Sophia made a sound like something breaking inside her. She buried her face in her hands, her whole body shaking. I put my arm around her, felt her collapse against me. Pritchard smiled, satisfied. "No further questions, Your Honor." Judge Roberts looked troubled but made notes. "Thank you, Olivia. You can step down." As Olivia was escorted out, she finally looked at her mother. For just a second, I saw the truth in my granddaughter's eyes. She was terrified, not of Sophia, of what Marcus would do if she didn't say what he'd coached her to say. Marcus stood to leave the courtroom, confident that he'd won. His smirk said it all. He whispered something to Amanda, and they both laughed quietly. That's when I stood up. I'd been silent through the entire hearing, taking notes, watching, waiting. Now it was time. "Your Honor," I said clearly. "Before you adjourn, I'd like to make a motion to formally represent my daughter, Sophia Martinez, as her legal counsel." The courtroom went still. Judge Roberts looked up sharply. Pritchard turned around, confused. Marcus stopped mid-step. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" Pritchard asked dismissively. "Elena Martinez," I said, walking to the front of the courtroom. "I'd like to enter my appearance as counsel for the respondent." Judge Roberts leaned forward, squinting at me. Then his eyes widened in recognition. "Elena? Elena Martinez? Judge Martinez?" "Yes, Your Honor. Though I haven't used that title in 15 years. The murmur that went through the courtroom was like a wave. A few older lawyers in the back row stood up slightly, trying to get a better look. One of them whispered loudly, "That's her. That's the judge from the Morrison case." Pritchard's face had gone from smug to pale. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. A family member representing under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 221, Section 46C. I interrupted smoothly. "A family member with legal expertise may represent a party in family court proceedings with the court's permission. I'm formally requesting that permission now, Your Honor. I am a member of the Massachusetts Bar in good standing, though I've been inactive for 15 years. I'm prepared to reactivate my status for this case." Judge Roberts stared at me for a long moment. I could see him processing, remembering. Finally, he spoke. "Mrs. Martinez, or should I say Judge Martinez, I remember your resignation. I was a junior prosecutor then, and I remember thinking it was one of the greatest injustices I'd ever witnessed. You were forced out for refusing to be corrupted. Thank you, Your Honor. Permission granted. This court will reconvene in 1 week. I expect both sides to be prepared for a full evidentiary hearing." He banged the gavel. As people filed out, I felt Sophia's hand slip into mine. "Mom," she whispered, her voice full of wonder and hope. "You're back." "I'm back," I confirmed, squeezing her hand. "And we're going to win." That week, I worked harder than I'd worked in years. I reviewed every document, organized every piece of evidence Robert had gathered, prepared every argument. Sophia and I met with Olivia privately, without Marcus's knowledge, arranged through Sophia's supervised visitation time. "Sweetheart," I said gently to my granddaughter, "I know you're scared. I know Daddy told you what to say in court, but I need you to understand something very important. The truth will always protect you more than a lie, even when the lie feels safer." Olivia looked at me with those big blue eyes, tears already forming. "But Daddy said if I don't say I want to live with him, he'll send me away to boarding school. He said I'll never see Mommy again." Sophia gasped, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, baby." "That's not true," I told Olivia firmly. Your daddy can't do that. The judge decides where you live, not your daddy. And the judge wants to know the truth about how you really feel. Do you want to know what I think? Olivia nodded. I think you love both your parents. I think you're confused because daddy hurt mommy, and that's scary. I think you're being brave by even talking to us right now. And I think, if you could live anywhere in the world, you'd want to live somewhere safe where nobody is hurting anybody else. I want to live with mommy, Olivia whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. I want to live with mommy and with you, Grandma. Daddy scares me when he drinks. He says mean things. Amanda is nice sometimes, but she doesn't really want me there. I heard her tell Daddy that having a kid around is ruining her lifestyle. Will you tell the judge that? I asked gently. I know it's hard. I know you're scared. But will you try? Olivia thought for a long moment, then nodded. The day of the full hearing, the courtroom was packed. Word had spread somehow that Judge Elena Martinez was back in court, and people were curious. I saw several reporters, some old colleagues, and random courthouse regulars who just wanted to see the show. Marcus arrived with Amanda, both dressed impeccably, projecting an image of the perfect couple. His confidence was back, that arrogant smirk on his face. He thought my appearance was just a desperate move by a washed-up judge. He had no idea what was coming. Judge Roberts entered, and we all stood. Please be seated. Mr. Pritchard, you may call your first witness. Pritchard called Marcus to the stand. For an hour, he guided Marcus through his testimony about what a devoted father he was, how concerned he was about Sophia's mental health, how he could provide a stable, loving home with Amanda. When it was my turn to cross-examine, I stood slowly, picked up the file Robert had prepared, and approached the witness stand. Mr. Sullivan, you testified that you're deeply concerned about my daughter's mental health. Is that correct? Yes, that's right. And you believe she's unfit to care for your daughter? I believe she needs help. Yes. Interesting. Tell me, Mr. Sullivan, do you use cocaine? The courtroom erupted. Pritchard jumped to his feet. Objection. Relevance. Your Honor, I'm establishing Mr. Sullivan's credibility and fitness as a parent, I said calmly. I'll allow it. But get to your point quickly, Judge Martinez. Marcus's face had gone red. I absolutely do not use drugs. Really? I pulled out a photograph. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit A. This is a photograph taken 6 weeks ago at Club Meridian in downtown Boston. That is Mr. Sullivan in the bathroom stall, isn't it? The photo clearly showed Marcus bent over a surface with a credit card and white powder. Pritchard tried to object, but Judge Roberts waved him off. That could be anyone, Marcus stammered. The photographer is prepared to testify it's you. We also have receipts showing you withdrew $3,000 in cash from your Aunt Sophia's joint account the day before this photo was taken. Care to explain what that money was for? Marcus's jaw clenched. He had no answer. I continued, pulling out more evidence. Bank statements showing he'd drained their joint account. Medical records from his previous girlfriend documenting injuries consistent with domestic violence. And finally, the recording. Your Honor, I'd like to play Exhibit F. This is a phone conversation between Mr. Sullivan and my daughter from 3 weeks ago. I pressed play. Marcus's threatening voice filled the courtroom. If you fight me on this custody thing, I will destroy you. I'll make sure you never see Olivia again. I'll tell the judge you're crazy, that you're dangerous. Sophia's broken voice. But I'm her mother. Marcus's cruel reply. You're nothing. You were always nothing. The courtroom was completely silent. Even Pritchard looked sick. Amanda, sitting in the gallery, had gone pale and was staring at Marcus like she'd never seen him before. Judge Roberts's expression was thunderous. Mr. Sullivan, did you threaten your ex-wife? I was upset. I didn't mean. Answer the question. Yes or no? Yes, but. Step down. I called Sophia to the stand next. She was nervous, but I'd prepared her well. She testified calmly about the years of emotional and physical abuse, about the gaslighting, about watching Marcus manipulate Olivia. Then I called Olivia. My granddaughter walked in looking terrified, but when she saw me give her an encouraging nod, she straightened her shoulders. That's my girl, I thought. Olivia, I said gently. I know you testified last week that you wanted to live with your father. Is that still true? She looked at Marcus. who was staring at her with an expression that clearly said, "Don't you dare." Then she looked at her mother, who was crying quietly but trying to smile, and then she looked at me. "No," Olivia said, her voice stronger than I expected. "I lied. Daddy told me to say I wanted to live with him. He said if I didn't, he'd send me away and I'd never see Mommy again. But Grandma said the truth will always protect me more than a lie." "And what's the truth, sweetheart?" "I want to live with Mommy." Tears were streaming down her face now, but she kept going. "Daddy scares me when he drinks. He says mean things to Mommy and to me. Amanda doesn't really want me there. She told Daddy I'm ruining her life. I love Daddy, but I don't feel safe with him." Marcus stood up, furious. "She's lying!" Elena told her to say that. "Mr. Sullivan, sit down," Judge Roberts commanded. "This is ridiculous. You're going to believe a child who's been coached by that disgraced judge?" And there it was, the attack I'd been waiting for. Pritchard, desperately trying to salvage his case, stood up. "Your Honor, I think Mr. Sullivan raises a valid point. Judge Martinez resigned in disgrace from the bench 15 years ago. Her judgment was called into question then. And frankly, her vendetta against my client is clouding her judgment now." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. This was the moment. I could see Sophia's worried face, could feel every eye on me. I took a deep breath and turned to face the room. "Your Honor, may I address the court?" "You may." I walked to the center of the courtroom, feeling the weight of 15 years of silence and shame lift off my shoulders. Mr. Pritchard is correct that I resigned from the bench 15 years ago. What he didn't mention is why. I was presiding over United States versus Morrison, a corruption case involving a powerful real estate developer. The defendant's father offered me $500,000 to acquit his guilty son. I refused. I turned the bribe over to the FBI. I convicted the defendant based on overwhelming evidence, and for doing my job, for refusing to be bought, I was systematically targeted by political allies of the Morrison family. They couldn't get me on actual misconduct, so they manufactured an ethics scandal designed to destroy my reputation. I was given a choice: resign quietly, or watch my career and my daughter's future be dragged through the mud in a very public investigation into fabricated charges. I paused, letting that sink in. I resigned, not because I did anything wrong, but because I had a 17-year-old daughter who didn't deserve to watch her mother be publicly crucified for having integrity. But here's what Mr. Pritchard conveniently forgot to mention. The Morrison case led to a broader corruption investigation. The judge, who tried to force my resignation, was eventually convicted of bribery and sentenced to federal prison. The FBI investigation completely vindicated me, but by then, I'd already walked away. I'd already rebuilt my life as a legal consultant, making a quarter of what I used to earn, working out of a small office, no longer Judge Martinez but just Elena, the woman who chose integrity over comfort. I turned to look at Marcus, then at Sophia, then at Olivia. My daughter was watching me 15 years ago when I made that choice. She saw me lose everything for refusing to compromise my values. And you know what she learned? She learned that some things matter more than money or status or power. She learned that protecting the vulnerable, standing up to bullies, and telling the truth are worth any price. That's the woman I raised. That's the mother Olivia has, someone who would rather lose everything than teach her child that honesty is negotiable. I walked closer to the judge's bench. Your Honor, 15 years ago, I stood in a courtroom not unlike this one, and I refused to let a guilty man buy his freedom. Today, I'm standing in this courtroom, refusing to let a manipulative, abusive man buy custody of my granddaughter with lies and intimidation. My judgment wasn't clouded then, and it isn't clouded now. The difference is that 15 years ago, I was a judge bound by neutrality. Today, I'm a grandmother fighting for her family. And I'll use every skill, every bit of knowledge, every ounce of strength I have to make sure that little girl grows up safe and loved. The courtroom was completely silent. Judge Roberts was looking at me with something like awe. Even Pritchard had nothing to say. Finally, Judge Roberts spoke. I remember your case, Judge Martinez. I was a young prosecutor then, and I remember thinking that if I ever made it to the bench, I wanted to be the kind of judge you were. Principled. Fearless. Incorruptible. He turned to Marcus. Mr. Sullivan, I've heard enough. The evidence of your drug use, your threats, your manipulation of your daughter, and your history of domestic violence paint a clear picture. You're not seeking custody because you love your daughter. You're seeking custody as a weapon against your ex-wife. Marcus started to protest, but Judge Roberts held up his hand. I'm issuing my ruling now. Full physical custody of Olivia Sullivan is awarded to her mother, Sophia Martinez. Mr. Sullivan, you will have supervised visitation only, 2 hours per week, supervised by a court-appointed guardian. You will submit to random drug testing. You will complete a domestic violence intervention program. And if you violate any of these conditions, your visitation rights will be suspended entirely. Marcus exploded. This is bullshit. You can't do this. Bailiff. Remove Mr. Sullivan from my courtroom. As the bailiff approached, Marcus turned to glare at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, he snarled. Yes, it is, I replied calmly. They escorted him out, Amanda following quickly behind, her face a mask of shock and disgust. I heard her say to him as they passed, "Don't call me. We're done." Sophia grabbed me, sobbing into my shoulder. "Mom, you did it. You actually did it." Olivia ran to us, and the three of us held each other, crying and laughing at the same time. Judge Roberts smiled from his bench and quietly left to give us our moment. That was 3 months ago. Today, as I sit in my kitchen watching Sophia help Olivia with her homework at the dining table, their heads bent together over a math problem, I feel something I haven't felt in 15 years. Peace. Sophia is healing. She's back to wearing her bright colors. Her laugh has returned, genuine and full. She's in therapy, working through the trauma Marcus inflicted, but she's stronger every day. She's talking about going back to school to get her master's degree in education. Olivia is thriving. Her nightmares have stopped. She's doing better in school. Last week, she asked me to teach her about the law because she wants to be a judge like Grandma when she grows up. I told her she could be anything she wanted, but if she chose to be a judge, I'd be honored to guide her. As for Marcus, his world collapsed just as he deserved. His firm found out about the cocaine use and fired him. Amanda's wealthy family made sure word got around their social circles about what kind of man he really was. He lost his nice apartment and is now fighting fraud charges related to money he embezzled from clients. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he's living with his brother and working as a temp. I don't feel sorry for him. Some people need to face consequences before they understand the damage they've caused. The local legal community welcomed me back with open arms. Judge Roberts wrote a letter to the Bar Association recommending my reinstatement to active status. I've started taking on pro bono family law cases for women who can't afford representation. Women like Sophia who need someone to fight for them when they can't fight for themselves. Last week, a young woman came to my office, clutching her infant son, bruises barely covered by makeup. "Are you Judge Martinez?" she asked quietly. "I heard you help people. I need help." I looked at her, saw my daughter in her frightened eyes and said, "Sit down. Tell me your story. We're going to fix this." Because that's what I do now. I'm not Federal Judge Elena Martinez anymore. I'm just Elena, grandmother, mother, lawyer, fighter, and I've learned something important. Losing everything taught me what really matters. It's not the title. It's not the prestige or the money or the power. It's protecting the people you love. It's standing up when standing up costs you something. It's teaching the next generation that integrity isn't just a word, it's a way of life. I look at my daughter and my granddaughter, safe and happy in my kitchen, and I know I'd make the same choice again. Every single time. Because some things are worth more than a career. Some things are worth everything. The story you just heard had names, and some details changed to protect the identities of those involved, but the heart of it is true. We're not sharing this to judge or condemn, but to give hope to someone out there who might be in a similar situation. Maybe you're a mother being gaslit by an abusive ex. Maybe you're a grandmother watching your child suffer and feeling helpless. Maybe you're a woman who stood up for what's right and lost everything because of it. I want you to know, you're not alone. Your fight isn't over. The truth is powerful, even when it feels weak. Justice sometimes takes time, but it's worth fighting for. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet to keep the peace? Or would you have stood up, even knowing what it might cost. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for staying with me through this entire story. God bless you, and remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're terrified. That's what heroes are made of, ordinary people making extraordinary choices to protect those who can't protect themselves.